San Antonio leading a continuing education class for licensed professional counselors on the morning of 9/11. And Marge came through the back door after speaking with Jennifer, daughter, who was supposed to come up from Francis Pass to San Antonio. And thank you, Bill. And she crashed through the back door. We had police officers, we had military, we had these licensed counselors getting their continuing education. And it was all on anger management. And, pardon me. And Marge came through the back door and said, "Turn on the televisions, Michael. We're under attack." Well, that stunned everybody. We had two large monitors, kind of like that, on each side of the training room, and we turned them on, and we saw the second plane go into the tower. And I first thought, this is a Bruce Willis movie. This can't be real. And then I thought, no, national television in the morning, this is happening, this is real. Well, it was a tough day that day. You know, these guys wanted to stay around the television, and I asked them if they wanted to go home because they came in from all over Texas and they didn't want to lose their continuing education credit. So we toughed out that day. And on the way home that day, I got a call from the North American Mission Board asking me if I would, they'd had a request from Giuliani's office to asking me if I would lead a team of counselors and chaplains to Ground Zero. And we were in between San Antonio and Temple at that time. And I said, sure. Like many of us would have said, given that opportunity, but knowing what I know now, I would have thought about it, I would have prayed about it, I really would have, because it was a tragic time. But I said, sure. At Baptist building in Dallas, Texas, got in a van with 3 other people and drove straight through to New York. And I was there 3 days after the towers fell. And right after Bush had left the site. And we had some experiences there that can only be explained by the provision of God. For an example, one, we were at the Metropolitan Baptist Association, for lack of a better place to meet, and we surrounded the corner and we started walking to the side because all these people wanted to walk down to Ground Zero, which was nearly a day's walk. I didn't want to do that, but they did, and I'm glad we did it because we saw amazing things. But there was a guy walked up behind us, and I had police chaplain on the back of my shirt, and these other guys had chaplain on the back of their shirts. And he tapped me on the shoulder and I said, where are you from? This guy was in shorts and a tank top on, sandals, and a briefcase. And he said, what are you doing up here? And we said, we came from Texas to help any way we can. We work with the police and fire department, work with the families of the victims. And he said, well, where are you guys staying? And I said, well, we stayed in New Jersey last night because we couldn't find a place here in the city. And he said, well, I own a hotel. And we looked at each other like, yeah, right. This guy's in shorts and a tank top and sandals in New York City owns a hotel. And we just looked and kind of rolled our eyes at each other. And he said, no, I do, and we'd like to help. Picked up his cell phone, he called. It was 2 blocks from Macy's. It was a Marriott, and it was, to tell you what happened, we stayed there for an entire year, free of charge. We were,
with the parking spot right in front of the door.
Parking spot right in front of the door. That just doesn't happen. I mean, there wasn't any way for that to happen. And things like that occurred repetitiously, just things that we just would all say, okay, this is normal now. And it was the normal Christian life, but we were in a different step. I was standing outside 2 weeks after those things fell, and the U.S. Customs building had caved in from the center, and yet it was intact with the garages all around it. And when the second tower went down, it caved that building in from the center. And I was standing outside looking up at 10 stories of melted steel and fire and rubble and smoke and people and all kinds of things with the bucket brigade and the firemen up the side of that mound of rubble. You remember that, don't you? Do you recall that? And I was standing there with a battalion chief from the New York Fire Department. Being a former firefighter, I didn't know how in the world these people were going to function. I didn't know how that, because it just was colossal. It was chaotic beyond description. And this guy came out of the building, the U.S. Customs building garage area, and he yelled at me. He said, "Chaplain!" And that's my best Bronx. "Chaplain, come over here, go in the door." And we both ran. The fire chief didn't. He stopped about midway, but I ran on in there because there was still time for someone to be found.
Yeah.
And when we got to the edge of where that thing went off and all the rubble was in there, he said to me, this iron worker, and you're going to hear it in just a minute, said to me, "Chaplain, am I seeing what am I seeing? Am I going crazy?" And there was a steel beam that had fallen in the shape of a cross right in the middle of that rubble. And there was another cross and another cross.
Oh, okay.
Steel beams.
And
People
the
don't know
shroud
about
was
those
up.
3 crosses.
Michael, the shroud was still on that.
The shroud of
Looked like-
metal of steel looked like an Easter
shroud.
cross, man. And I'm saying, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I said, "No, you're not going crazy. You're seeing what you're seeing." When that happened, Giuliani, he wasn't pressured. He wanted to pull it out of there because they were fixing to destroy that building. It was going to be caved in, and everything was going to be lost. So he got a bunch of iron workers together, and we pulled that thing out of there. And that's one of the places that I got hurt in my back and hips and legs trying to get that big steel cross out of there, because it's 48 feet tall. Now that's pretty tall.
Pretty tough.
Doesn't look that tall in the midst of that rubble. But when you got it out of there and put it up over the side, Marge had written a song called "Turn Your Eyes on Me." And she didn't ever want to put herself on the cover because "Turn Your Eyes on Me" would not be a conducive as humble as she is. And so, but that's the cross, and the story of how it was found is on the inside of that CD that we did. And we've got hymns on here, like Curtis did the song from the hymn book, because the people in New York that we were training and working with had never heard of some of the old hymns of the faith, like "It Is Well With My Soul" and even "Amazing Grace," those kinds of songs. So she put several of those songs on there, and I wrote a couple of them, and she wrote the title song called "Turn Your Eyes on Me," and that's back there on the back, because if you ever heard her sing, she's got a voice. It still does.
Well, next time we meet, you're on, okay? That'd be fun.
I don't have a track, I have a CD, but I don't have a track with me.
Well, anyway, the U.S. Customs film crew did an interview with this iron worker and me about this cross. And I've got that on my website. We got a DVD of it and put it up on our website. And I think you captured it, didn't you, too?
It's ready to go.
Okay, well, this lady named Juliana Halsey, she didn't want to do this at all. She didn't want to have anything to do with the cross or Christianity or religion or of any sort. She just was a pretty cold lady. After this was over, so many things began to come her way and to befall her in a lot of different ways. She got saved. And it was just one of those things that you just have to say, wow, God, you are an awesome God.
Yeah.
At any rate, she's going to lead you through some of the early stages and where we found that cross on this video.
New York City.
No story about the events of September 11th would be complete without paying tribute to the thousands of heroes in New York, the firemen, policemen, rescue workers, and construction workers who unselfishly saved so many lives, then spent weeks pouring through the rubble. Ironically, these same men and women, who have been a source of inspiration and strength to so many across our country, have themselves found inspiration and strength amid the rubble of the New York Custom House. America's Frontline reporter Christiana Halsey has more on this unique and touching story.
From the outside, 6 World Trade Center looks almost intact, but the inside is another story. The entire center has been crushed by the falling towers. And because of certain debris, what used to be known as the Customs House is now known as God's House. For rescue workers, the days are long and the work is grueling. Their goal? To find the nearly 5,000 victims buried in the tons of twisted metal and debris from September 11th's attack. Next to the Trade Center tower debris stands the remains of the New York Custom House. For the employees who worked here, 6 World Trade Center was like a second home.
A lot of times cops call their precinct their house, and this was our house. A place we went to do our job and to do good work and to put bad guys in jail, and in a place where we had some fun.
Now, the New York Custom House stands as a symbol of hope. When the Trade Center towers fell, several huge steel beams plunged into 6 World Trade Center, creating an area for tired rescue workers to find sanctuary. Inside, there are 4 beams in the shape of crosses. For some, these crosses symbolize America's strength to survive.
The only thing I could say is, God bless America, because this place looks like hell. And through all of it, when you look in there, people are amazed, and it brings enlightenment, composure, understanding, and strength.
Workers on site renamed 6 World Trade Center. It's known to all that enter as God's house.
There's been a steady stream of people to look at this metal that fell configured like a cross. And it's been just a ray of hope for a lot of people.
Although 6 World Trade Center is now gone, representatives from several religions are hoping to preserve the metal crosses for a future memorial, as a place of hope among such an enormous tragedy. Christiana Halsey reporting for America's Frontline, New York.
Customs employees around the country immediately mobilized.
They made this DVD and sent it all over. It's just amazing. No one really knows the behind the scenes on that except the Lord Himself. Because wherever it went, there was power behind it. I was mentioning this last night to Curtis at the dinner table, and if you've ever seen a satellite picture of Ground Zero, you can't even see it. If you're there in the midst of all of this, and what we breathed cost 10,000 first responders their health, and me included. Things that happened to me has been a loss of health for me. But I take refuge in that loss, because that loss is my gain, as a matter of fact. But those kinds of things, bad things, when you look at it from a satellite point of view, you can't even see it, you know that God is in control of all